Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us His truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers out pushing the word in truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. I'm the brother Yashawan, here with a quick World War III daily update. We're going to start out by watching this old clip of Wesley Clark, the general, and this goes back to maybe 03-ish. Not exactly sure. Let's see. Anyway, and we're going to listen to, basically this war's been going on since George H.W. Bush went in and attacked Saddam Hussein down in Kuwait, the liberation of Kuwait or whatever. That's when this war actually started, but it's still raging on. Then with 9/11, that was a pretense to go to war, much like a Pearl Harbor situation. But let's watch this and it'll bring some perspective.
To worry about Iraq, not to worry about Iraq, not Iran. I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
So that gives you some perspective in what is going on. This thing has been going on for a while. Okay, so I can stop this.
Fred.
Let's go down here to I believe it was Deep Journals. Something about Russia saying that they won in Syria because Syria was on that list. And what happened is they got bogged down in Syria. Everybody on that list they pretty much got to except for Iran. Iran was the last one on the list, and they never took Syria down because Russia, it was a proxy war, and Russia was in there. And where is this at? It's not there. Let me see. Bear with me for a moment. Maybe it's not Deep Journal. This is a carrier pigeon. Slovakia. Well, maybe I can't find it right now. But it was something to the effect that Russia was celebrating because they won in Syria and the United States lost. So they would have to take Syria down before they went into Iran. And now it's too late. It's too late to go into, because the greater war has begun. Because according to the video we just watched, apparently that was September 20th, which was days after September 2001. Let's see. Not this. Right here. Wait. Putin is angry about Syria. Let's see. Maybe I read it wrong. All right, so I can't find it. I guess I should have gotten it together before I started this video. But anyway, the point is right here. It's Russian armed. No. The point is that you can clearly see, with all the fighting going on in the Middle East, that the Most High is at work. I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, that's a week ago. It was days ago. All right, so what have we not looked at? It's not Deep Journalist. That's 3 weeks ago now. Wow. Let's watch this.
What if every time someone swiped their credit card?
Dear listeners, welcome to the Deep Journal channel. Russia continues to heavily bomb northern Syria. Recently, Russia has increased its attacks in Syria and is trying to ensure the dominance of the Syrian regime forces throughout the country's territory. According to experts, the reason for this is that Bashar Assad, the leader of the Syrian regime, is under the auspices of Russia. Russia saw the region as a province, especially after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, and decided to remove all foreign elements in the region on its own initiative. Continuing its attacks, especially in the northern Idlib region, Russia seems to have influenced the south of the country with its attacks for the last week. After the withdrawal from Afghanistan, with the statements from the USA, it was considered that the USA would withdraw from Syria as well. There were even statements that the US no longer had any interest in Syria. These statements were mostly beneficial to Russia, but the USA began to shift the US forces from Iraq to Syria. This causes great discomfort in Russia. It seems that there will be new heavy conflicts in the region, especially with the anti-US and anti-Israel attitude of Iran, Russia's biggest ally in Syria. The US supports the Syrian SDF. Iran, on the other hand, has recently focused its efforts against the SDF. It is claimed that some of the Hezbollah militants under the control of Iran have been shifted to the north of Syria with the cessation of events in Daraa province in the south of Syria. Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, stated at the Bashar Assad summit yesterday that the US presence in Syria is illegal. He made statements that the United States has broken the unity in Syria and that Syria should resolve its own issues. Russian President Vladimir Putin made these statements, but he needs to be reminded that Russia, like the United States, is an external factor in Syria. Russia bases its presence in Syria on unlawful authority from an undemocratic Syrian government, which represents a small part of the Syrian people and has attempted to massacre the rest of its people. Putin also underlined his support for Assad in the continuation of the meeting. This support was interpreted by some experts as showing that Bashar Assad is committed to fulfilling all Russia's wishes. The most important result of the Putin-Assad meeting will be that Russia, which is trying to follow a policy of intimidation with heavy attacks on all rebellious regions, will continue these attacks at full speed. Now let's examine the details together. A few hours after a meeting in Moscow between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad, the Russian Air Force used air-to-ground missiles to target anti-government forces in the Aleppo region, hitting districts included in a 2020 truce reached between Russia and Turkey. Reports were from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The area hit by Russian airstrikes was Deir ez-Zor, west of the regional capital of Aleppo, but in the same region and out of government control. The area is under de facto Turkish influence but is in the hands of armed opposition groups. Russia and Turkey have for years had competing areas of influence in northwestern Syria. Syrian and Russian government attacks have stepped up in recent days after positions held by armed forces between Idlib and Aleppo. Russian President Vladimir Putin called the presence of US troops in Syria illegal during a Monday meeting with Syrian President Bashar Assad in Moscow, according to the Kremlin. The Russian leader also said that consolidating forces is the only way to allow the country to get on its feet, the Kremlin quoted Putin as saying in a statement released Tuesday. There are hundreds of US troops stationed in eastern Syria to aid Kurdish-led fighters in combating the Islamic State militant group and Turkish forces present in the northern part of the country, the Associated Press reported. While speaking to the Syrian leader Monday, Putin said that the US presence in the country was not legal because they lacked permission from the United Nations or the Syrian government to be there. This clearly violates international law and doesn't allow you to make maximum efforts to consolidate the country, Putin was quoted as telling Assad in the Kremlin statement. Only a consolidation of all forces in Syria will allow the country to get on its feet and start steady development, moving forward, Putin said. Russia joined Syria's 10-year conflict in September 2015, when the Syrian military appeared close to collapse, and has since helped in tipping the balance of power in favor of Assad, whose forces now control much of the country.
Okay,
Hundreds of Russian...
So there you have it. This is why they got bogged down in Syria. They said that they were trying to get through that whole list in 5 years. And if that was 2001, they should have been done in 2006. All right, so what happened? They never made it to Iran because they didn't get out of Syria. They didn't take down Syria. All right, so just a little information. All right, let's go to Joel real quick. We'll get a couple of scripts on the way out. So, if you didn't know, this is what's going on. God is gathering the nations, meaning the armies. I will also gather the nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay? Now, the Most High's name is Yahweh, and Shaphat means judgment. So God's judgment, Yahushua, or in this case, Jehoshaphat. So he's bringing them down there to judge them, to plead with them. Let's get it right here. I will gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my people Israel, okay? There will I judge them. I will gather the armies of the world into the valley of Jehoshaphat. There will I judge them for harming my people Israel. Okay? This is what we see going on. This is what all the fighting is about, all the wars, and it's been going on for a minute, as you can see now. So, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop until the final bombs are dropped. All right? The nukes. The nukes are going to end this thing. Let's see. Joel 3 and 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. Okay. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. The heathen are the other nations other than Israel. Okay? Jump down to 14. Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. All right? This is what the war is about. The war is about an ambush. God is gathering all the armies down there so that he can put an end to them and then subdue all the other nations under the subjection of the nation of Israel. Okay? So, if you can wrap your head around that, the quicker you wrap your head around that, the better off you'll be. All right? Because that's what the kingdom of heaven, that's what we're discussing. All right? This kingdom has to be destroyed, and the kingdom of heaven will come in right after this kingdom goes down. All right? Let's get that real quick. This is Genesis 25. Started 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. That's Rebecca. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. What does that mean? And his name was called Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. All right. What does it mean that his hand took hold on Esau's heel? Well, we got to go to the Apocrypha to get that. 2 Ezra 6. All right. This kingdom has to go down. This is Esau's kingdom that we're in right now. The so-called white man. Start at 6. 2 Ezra 6 and 6. Then did I consider these things, and they were all made through me and me alone, and through none other. By me also shall they be ended. This is God, and none other. That's God speaking. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times, or when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? Talk about the world, or the kingdom. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Here's what it means. For Esau is the end of the world, That's the world that we're in now, the world as we know it, this kingdom, this wicked kingdom. All right? And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Jacob is the kingdom of heaven with Yahushua, who you ignorantly call Jesus Christ, sitting on the throne, and King David, okay, ruled in righteousness. So we're at the end of Esau's world. It's going to be destroyed with this World War III, and then the nuclear fire is going to dissolve this place. And then heaven on earth is going to be set up. It's called the kingdom of heaven, with the one you called Jesus coming back in this fashion right here. Jesus and the angels. Okay? All right? All right, so with that, that's good enough for today. We got one more tomorrow. Hope that the elect were edified, and with that, I'll say shalom.